Hi, everyone. This is Jeff Francis. I'm a co-founder of N08. We're a digital product studio based here in Plano, Texas. I'm joined today with our chief architect, Bill Francis. No relation. We always get asked that, so we always try to call that out from the very beginning. But Bill, thanks for hopping on a video today.
Sure. Yeah, glad to get someone else that wants to chat with me about iOS. So.
That's right. So as Bill mentioned, we thought it'd be fun to hop on here and kind of recap some of the things that we heard from the Apple Developer Conference a couple weeks ago. A couple months ago, we did a similar one of these videos where we were sort of speculating on what we thought would potentially be announced at the upcoming conference at that time, and what to expect in the fall when iOS 14 comes out. So now that the conference has taken place, we thought let's regroup, chat for a few minutes about some of the the bigger highlights. You can find a ton of articles out there on recaps, but sometimes it's nice just to isolate a handful of things. So I thought we'd get on here and talk about what were the biggest takeaways. So I guess on that note, Bill, what stood out from the conference that you thought was noteworthy?
For me, right, I'll just, I was kind of blown away even just by how much stuff they like packed into this release. They always kind of talk about, hey, this is the biggest and best, but it really does seem like that they just jammed a ton in here. So, I'm pretty excited, not just about the features, but, seeing them actually, drop live. And,
yeah, that was one of the things I mean, one, they had to do it all virtually, right? So that was brand new. But I think one of the things that stood out to me was they had to cover a lot of ground in a relatively short amount of time. And so when these first started, it was a handful of different platforms that they would talk about. And now they gotta jump around a whole lot to touch on things. So there was a lot in there.
Yeah, they really did, right? And you can just kind of see like this kind of, general push for this kind of ambient computing environment, right? So, so the idea that, like with the pencil kit, for example, right? Like they're bringing a lot of that sort of work that you might do like on an iPad, and the desktop, right? And make that experience, kind of seamless, right? So that you can continue that, professional experience, and just kind of blurring the lines, right, between, mobility and desktop. And
Maybe you mentioned the term ambient computing. So for those that are maybe watching this that don't know what does ambient computing mean?
Just kind of the idea that that this same experience, right, can exist across all the different devices that you have, whether that's your phone or your tablet or your desktop, right, and sort of bringing forth the features and functionality that makes sense there, so that for you as the user, right, you can bring the kind of whatever the digital experience is to you wherever you are, right, and you can continue it, right, wherever it makes sense. And so I feel like that. Especially some of the updates I saw with the pencil kit that are really impressive, I think will really sort of make people more productive on the go, right? And
Yeah.
make it not such a, hard stop between, I'm at work, I'm at my desk, now I'm, on the train or whatever, right? So,
I kind of got the sense that this is a big vision that's been in the works for a really long time. There's a lot of different pieces to that are starting to all kind of come together, right? I mean, they're talking about going to their own chips, and so that probably impacts some of that, right? The ability to run some iOS apps on a Mac. The other one that stood out to me was the concept of app clips. I know that when I was talking with you, app clips has been around for a while on Android, but tell us a little bit about what did you hear with app clips? Why is that significant? What opportunities maybe do we think that will present for developers to better leverage that type of functionality?
yeah, I think it's a pretty exciting opportunity, right? And the idea being that, some slice of your app or some functionality, right, is available without going through the download and the install process. So gives you a, opportunity to surface as a developer, right, or the owner of a product, gives you the opportunity to surface, key functionality and sort of show off your app, right, without someone having to commit to downloading and installing. And then on the flip side, as a user, right, it gives me the opportunity to, try something, right, before I, and it seems like a minor investment, to download something and sign up for it. But, when you're talking, 4 billion apps or whatever there are like in the store now, right? I mean,
Yeah.
just the opportunity, to try one out and use it and see it actually perform and do something useful for you, I think is pretty worthwhile. And the fact that I mentioned before, right, that there is a very similar option that's been around on Android for a while, right, but it hasn't really gained a lot of traction. And so I feel like that, when something becomes available on both of the platforms, right, that dominate the mobile space, it adds that sort of legitimacy to it. So I expect not only will we see some pretty, cool innovations with the app clips on iOS, but I also think it will spur, folks on who are doing development for Android to retry that again as well. So.
Yeah, we saw something really similar with Apple Pay, right? I mean, when Apple Pay came out, that wasn't brand new, but the fact that Apple was now including that made it really exciting for everyone because adoptability would get bumped a lot, right?
Yeah, I mean, think of it from a development perspective, right? Like you don't want to invest in something that can only be, accessed by half your users, right? So
Right. And then these app clips. Let's think about what I think what we try to do in a lot of these videos is we try to talk very product level, right? So when we think about use case or a user experience that we immediately comes to mind where app clips might really make an impact, is there anything that sort of stands out, like a particular industry or a use case that you think might be something that would be a poster child for using this kind of thing?
Well, I mean, where I saw it in use before on Android that I thought was really worthwhile was on those the Coca-Cola freestyle machines, right? But being able to walk up to the machine, right, and there's an experience that requires an app, but you can try it out right then, and especially something where you're in public, you're in line, right? Even if you look at something like Starbucks, Pay or something, if there are different opportunities for you to use some of those features, right, when you got up to the register without having to download the app, it's pretty powerful advertisement sort of for the app, right, and the functionality.
It could be a pretty opportune time for that particular functionality. There's so much to unpack there. We're talking about one thing that they announced, right? We could talk for hours about this, but I recently went to a restaurant, and now they don't hand you a real menu. They hand you like a little paper card that gets thrown away. It's got a QR code on it, and you scan it and you open up and look at a menu. I mean, it's not too far-fetched to think about that a lot of these restaurants, in order to further reduce contact with servers in the restaurant, that you could have sort of one of these app clips where you can scan, see the menu, place your order, maybe even pay the bill and everything, like that on-ramp to that experience. I could see restaurants even going further in using some of that, even in an in-location experience,
Yeah, I think some of the best, the best experiences, right, for this is to look at it not from like, what could I build an app clip to do, but what things in my existing app, right, can I expose, right, and that would get people into the app and get people excited about the app and provide value,
right?
Bringing them into the ecosystem, right? So
yeah, that's an immediate win, right? You don't have to totally build all new functionality in order to take advantage of that. You could look at it as a mechanism to like further the adoptability of a particular feature or app, right?
Yeah, and I just feel like that it sort of flows into more of an overall theme that I saw in the iOS 14, right, which is Apple really trying to open things up more in some ways than they have previously, right? I mean, they're opening up they have a widget framework now where you can put stuff on the home screen. They're redesigning the home screen. They're allowing developers, to create widgets now. They're allowing users to set something as a default app that wasn't an Apple stock app. Even the subscriptions, they made some updates to the subscriptions that you can share in-app purchases now with your family a lot easier. So I just saw like sort of a general kind of push maybe to make the system a little more open, a little more friendly, and in a way like more accessible or lowering kind of the barriers, right, for people to get into apps and to do things. So.
Interesting. Okay. I know we only have a few more minutes, but one last question I thought may be interesting for us to talk about is, from the standpoint of developers, or companies that already have an iOS app in the App Store. Was there anything that you heard that came up, or what should those developers be thinking about right now if they're wanting to just sort of make sure that their app is going to be in good shape when this releases? So we're not so much talking about what do they do to take advantage of all these new opportunities and new functionality that's available, but help to ensure that they are able to keep their current app in a good place. Anything come to mind?
So two, we talked about last time, right? The Apple sign in, and we talked last time about the OpenGL deprecation. Both those are pretty important. But one that sort of caught me off guard a little bit is the new sort of push on the transparency, on the privacy, and kind of the permissions that the app is using, right? Even to the point where if you caught the video now, when you're actually looking at something in the store and looking at downloading it, right, it's going to surface the permissions that are required by the app even prior to you downloading it. So, I think that that developers will have to kind of revisit the permissions, both what permissions they're asking for and how they're using them and how they explain to the user why they have those permissions, or as I feel like there's going to be, quite a bit of crackdown on that once you start submitting apps.
Yeah, I think one of the good things about that is that it really it creates a situation where the developer really needs to create a good case or make a defense for why they're getting that data. And I think maybe early on in the App Store's life that was a little bit more unregulated, right? Like there was things that could be tracked, things that could be, and you didn't always have to really go to great lengths to explain or justify why you needed that access. And so I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we probably don't have enough time to get into, but I think one of the things that is really a powerful thing that Apple didn't push on very much, right, was that you're going to have to identify, that you use advertising identifiers at the time the app is installed, and the person has to agree to let you do that information, use that information, right? And
or it's turned off by default, right? Like if they don't explicitly say yes, then by default it's inactivated, right?
yeah, and that's a billion-dollar industry, right? That's going to be impacted, right? Because it's hard for me to imagine who would say yes, track my info, right? Share
Yeah.
my.
I think that's probably one of the shockwaves that is getting the least conversation around it, right? Is that's going to make a really big difference for digital marketers that are accustomed to having access to that. So, but they'll adapt, right? So all of us will. So cool. All right, Bill. Any parting thoughts? Any other things that are worth dropping in here? There's like I said, there's so much content. There's so many things about this that we'll probably have to do several more of these videos. But wanted to kind of just revisit it briefly. Anything else that you want to touch on before we conclude here?
No, if you haven't seen the videos, right, they're all out there, right? All the WWDC videos out there. You should, just grab a couple and watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, thanks, guys. If you want to talk more on these topics, or if you're facing some of your own challenges with your app and you just have a question, feel free to send it to us. We'll help you out any way we can. Be more than happy. Post in the comments, or you can reach us at our website, www.no8.com. That's ENO, the number 8.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks, everyone.